Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of MatChat. We are brought to you by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com. Get the new freaks that just dropped this morning. Pure and Clean Sports, best mat cleaner in the game. Resolite, the mat company. Joined today by probably the star of the weekend, his program at the multi-level national duels, the head coach of the North Central women's program, Coach Joe Norton. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Well, I think we should get right to the meat, and then we can kind of work backwards and around things. But for the people that don't know, your program had really a historic weekend. You guys win the national duels as a D3 program, winning the D1 duels, which we can get into as well. But I think maybe the story that people are focusing on more is your semifinal win over Iowa. I follow women's wrestling fairly closely for what I've done with USA Wrestling over the years, and I'm friends with Gary Mayab, and I saw that they beat you guys last year, even though you actually won more matches because of how freestyle team scoring works. But just talk a little bit about the weekend first, then we'll get into mindset and some other things. You know, what were your thoughts going into it? How much did you play the matchup game? You know, this person can beat that person, this person that can hold them to a decision. We can at least score and attack, those kind of things.
Yeah. Going into the weekend, it was different for us. We've been the runner-up at this event 3 years in a row in 23, 24, 25. We were either the 1 or 2 seed every time. So coming in this year, we were actually the 4 seed. So that was different for us. We took a couple losses in November. And seeing the Hawkeyes in the semis was different. You know, the past 2 years, it's been kind of, a foregone conclusion that we were going to hit in the finals. And there were some other teams that have been up and coming, but no one was at the level of either squad yet. This year was different with some other teams getting in there that knocked us off in November and bumped us to 4. So we had a conversation with the ladies like, hey, man, this is different. We want the Hawkeyes in the finals with, with all the marbles, everything on the line. But this is what it is, and we got to go out and do, take care of what's in front of us. So we didn't really play the matchup game much, really, until we got to heavyweight. But the idea was to put our best lineup out there. We've actually played the matchup game more in the past. In 24, the year we lost to them by a point, we put in essentially the second string wrestler at 109, and it ended up kind of costing us the duel, but we thought it was a better matchup. And then last year we bumped a few women up to weight classes. Didn't work either time. This year we just rolled with our best team and ended up being good enough. And we went with our third string heavyweight essentially because we needed a fall, and she's more of a pinner than the other two, and she went out and got it done. So that's maybe the only little bit of lineup jockeying that we did. But they just rose to the occasion. They were resilient. We lost a couple matches that we felt like we needed, and they bounced back as a group really, really well. So that's why they were able to get it done.
I love, I coached with my dad for a long time. He was like a coach for 40 years. He's the all-time junior college winner in dual meets. And he was more of the just roll your guys out and, don't try to play the game. But the game can really matter at times. It's amazing that you used your third string heavyweight to get a fall. But, I mean, your team better than anybody, and like, hey, maybe David's got a really good lefty headlock, or this other person's really good in a lateral drop position. And, it's not going to matter for seeding later at nationals or this other stuff. And tell me a little bit about, I was telling a story the other day, my sophomore year in the quarterfinals, I beat a guy who was undefeated, and my dad had to get my head right because I was acting like the tournament was over. And, you got 2 to go. And in your case, you still have another one to go. How easy or difficult was it to get? You have to let your kids enjoy that. Usually it's a 24-hour rule. You guys probably had a 24-minute rule or something. And you got to get ready for the final. So what was it like getting them refocused?
Yeah, at first they were just elated, right? When the fall happened and we won the dual meet, they're jumping up and down, they're going crazy. And I want them to enjoy that. It's a memory that they'll have forever. We always talk about, my goal is to create memories for them, right? That's what I'm out here trying to do. So I wanted them to get to soak it in and do that. But they hadn't even shaken hands yet. And the Hawkeye women were standing there waiting for us to shake hands. So I said, hey, we got to get in the handshake line. Let's go. So we did that. Then let them bounce around a little bit. And, then I called them back together about an hour later because we had 3 hours between the semis and the finals. And I told them a story about in 2020, December of 21, our men's team, I was the head coach of both squads for a while. Our men's team knocked off Wartburg in a dual meet for the first time ever. We got to #1 in the country. It was pretty cool. We turned around. It was at the Desert Duel. So we turned around about an hour later and wrestled a brand new team that had 0 All-Americans on it and almost lost. We won 21-18 because we were kind of sleeping through it because we were still on a high from the Wartburg win. And I told the women to use that as a lesson. We're not going to make that same mistake. I said, we didn't come here to beat Iowa. We came here to win the national duels, right? And we did beat Iowa along the way, but we're not going to win the national duels if we don't win the last one. We've taken second 3 years in a row, and I don't want to bring a 4th second place trophy home, right, to the trophy case. So that was the message for them. And then we have these special singlets that we designed to honor our old track and field and cross country coach who won 31 NCAA titles as a coach. He passed away in the fall, and they always wore candy striped uniforms. So we made candy striped singlets for a special home duel this year. And I had brought them, and I was only going to wear them if we made the finals. So I whipped them out in that meeting and told them, hey, I brought these for you guys. You earned being able to wear them again. And we're not going to lose in these singlets. We haven't, we got them to wear at a home duel. We won. We didn't plan on wearing them again. But they got some magic in them. So we're going to win in these singlets. And then that's what they did. So that was cool.
What a cool way to honor a coach like that. And I assume your school, I mean, I looked up some of the things. You're not like you're not Ohio State in terms of population. You're in a suburb of Chicago. Naperville is beautiful, by the way. Like, it's one of my favorite suburbs I try to go through on the way to Beat the Street Chicago up there. But I would imagine that your program winning the national duels had to be a ton of really well received back at home, but also in those singlets had to be like just an amazing moment for the entire school community, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It was really cool. I think that a lot of people came out to the home duel that we had to honor Coach Karius and told me how cool it was. I don't know how much knowledge people have other than seeing videos and pictures from the final duel that we actually wore them in that duel meet. But yeah, pretty well received. Just my phone blew up. It took like 2 days to get back to everyone from the semifinal win even. Just congratulating us and people that you maybe only talk to once or twice a year, or people from your past just in the wrestling world. So that was really cool. It was certainly really, really well received on campus. A Division III team beating a Big Ten school, it doesn't really happen in anything really ever. So people were pretty excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm sure you read this. Klingman did a great article on, your program, but the duels and how you used 2 different heavyweights, to win, and it came down the last match. And I don't know. I mean, you look good. I don't know if you picked up any gray hairs over the weekend, but you still got a full head of hair, which is good too. But it had to be. Duels are so cool. Like, I run dual meet tournaments. I ran the Hall of Fame duels. We ran Fab 50. Duels are awesome because the kids are all there. Like in a tournament, especially like Fargo's the opposite. Like, if I'm older than you, I'm coaching you, you go tech a guy. I'm like, hey, Joe, go rest, get off your feet, get your weight right. There you go back to the bench and you're probably cheering for your workout partner right afterwards. What does this do for your program that you guys have been knocking on that door? Like, it's like, if you get any more second place trophies, you can start a silver shop, right? So it's like, what was it like to punch through?
It was awesome. We love dual meets. Our team's kind of known in NCAA for being the loudest team at the national tournament, right? And that's something I said to the women last year. These other teams that we were in the hunt with, other than Iowa and the tournaments in Coralville on their campus, right? But you don't really hear those other teams as much. We're the loudest team in the gym, going toe to toe with the Hawkeyes in the stands, right? And every spring we have all these women that want to transfer. We obviously just can't take everybody, but because they see our culture and our girls and how supportive they are for each other and being the loudest team in the arena and the way they interact with the coaching staff. And I think that's even more on display in dual meets when we're all right there on that same bench versus, Maddie's wrestling on mat 2 and Kendra's wrestling on mat 8 at the same time. So it's really cool. Our women love duels. Man, are they loud. It's almost hard to coach. It's a good thing. But they are behind each other, man. And we had a good crew of the ones that weren't even on the dual meet roster in the stands right over top of us in that dual meet too. So it's really cool, and it does a lot for the program in showcasing why that matters, why team synergy. We talk about synergy all the time, right? And how, we tell the story of, a plow horse can pull 8 tons, but why can 2 plow horses pull 32? Right? That the math doesn't work on that. Well, because they're working together and they're behind each other, and they get better when they're doing things together, right? So I think that we show off our team synergy and how strong of a bond our girls have in those dual meet situations, and it shows why we're able to do these kind of things.
I love the plow horse analogy, and you led right to my next question. So you're like helping make me a better interviewer. I wanted to talk to you about your culture, which it sounds like synergy's at least one of the pillars of that. But you've built a program in a place that, I think Chicago's got good wrestling, at least, on the boys or men's side for years. And you're in a beautiful town and everything else, but it's not like you're Iowa or Oklahoma State or Penn State or Ohio State or these programs on the men's side. And culture, I think, does matter. And I think coaching men and women are different. Like one year at Fargo, all the girls before the finals are doing the YMCA, and you could never get a group of boys to do that.
Right.
And they're unique. They're different in their own ways, and both mindsets are awesome. But what are the pillars of your culture? What are you looking for? Like when you're recruiting, not only, hey, are they talented? Can they score all that? But maybe what's a red flag in recruiting in terms of culture?
Good question. What we look for in recruiting is passion for wrestling. Do you love wrestling? And of course, everyone that wrestles says they love wrestling, right? But do you love wrestling? Our girls are obsessed with wrestling. If you come into our program and you just like wrestling, you will stick out like a sore thumb. These girls live and breathe it, and they're great students too. But I would say those 2 things are the most important things. Do you love wrestling? How passionate are you about it? And then what kind of student are you? Something we're very proud of is that we've won the award from the NWCA for the highest GPA in the country 3 years in a row. So last year we had a 3.9, which is insane. We had 24 Scholar All-Americans. The next closest team had 14. So they got to be good students. Number one, because we don't have athletic scholarships, so you got to get a good merit scholarship, academic, right? But 2, you're just not going to fit in if you're not a great student who takes that seriously and if you don't love wrestling. Sometimes I'm kicking these girls out of the room because they want to do 3-4 workouts a day, and I gotta protect them from themselves. But those are the things we look for. I can tell a lot about you by watching you wrestle. I think a lot of coaches make the mistake of just looking at rankings or looking at results and calling the girls that win. We watch these kids wrestle. Wrestling's a very character-revealing sport. I want to see you lose. When you lose, do you throw your headgear? Do you cry at your coach? Are you blaming the official? When we're in a match and we're losing, maybe the ref makes a bad call. Are we bitching about it? Or are we putting our foot on the line, ready to go get the next one? Are we looking to our corner and being coachable? What's our body language like? Can we lose in the semis and bounce back and win that console semi, which is very hard to do? We look for those things, right? I don't root for my recruits to lose, but I like to see them lose because it tells me a lot about you when I'm recruiting you.
In junior college, we recruited for we rooted for them to lose, so nobody else would try to get them.
Sure, that too. But those are things that really, if you do that the right way and you get the right kids, we've only had 2 kids enter the transfer portal in 7 years of women's wrestling. Some of these other schools in the top 10 have had 20 plus. And I think it's because 1, we do things the right way, but 2, we bring the right kids in. So there's no, this kid wasn't the right fit and we didn't catch it in the recruiting process. We usually find those things out on the front end.
It's an awesome answer. One of the things when we recruited that was hard to tell, I thought, it was a long time ago, is how much do kids love wrestling versus how much do kids love winning? Because, most of the kids you're recruiting, all the kids you're recruiting are winning way more than they're losing, right? It doesn't matter how nice a kid is if she's 11-9, unless, she lost 9 times to the world team members, you're going to go get somebody who's 19-1. So is there anything that sticks out to you, or what are the sort of signs of like, hey, this person just loves getting their hand raised, but most of them are going to struggle a little bit entering as freshmen. How do I know then there's the love of the sport is going to pull them through versus, well, I'm not winning anymore, so now this isn't fun and now I don't want to do it?
Yeah, this sounds really silly, but it's super true. Do they smile? Like, what's their body language like? Are they enjoying being there? Are they enjoying being around their team and being around their coaches, whether they won or they lost? Something we do in our room is we say we're counting smiles today, right? Especially if it's a day before a weigh-in and everybody's kind of sucked down and feeling it, right? How many smiles we got today? And sometimes just by doing that, you'll get them to smile, right?
Yeah.
But body language, like, you can say you love being here, but your body language tells me more than your words do, right? And do you look like you want to be here? Do you look like you're having fun, whether you won or you lost? Like you said, do you love wrestling or do you love winning? You know, I can lose a match and have a blast and learn a lot. And I could also win and learn nothing and have no fun at all. You know, so your body language tells me, you know, whether you're enjoying this because you're winning or you're enjoying it because you just at your core enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that you probably learn more from your losses. You probably remember your losses more. I mean, like, if I ask you to recount a dual meet where you won 42-2, your memory might be a little fuzzy. I'm sure you could go through every single one of the duels where you lost to Iowa in the finals, like match by match, sequence by sequence, probably, like when you should have thrown a brick or, you know, something like that. You learn a lot more from those. And so I think that's still it is the $64,000 question, because it is amazing you've had that many kids come through and then that few leave, especially comparison to other programs and their turnover. And, you know, everybody's trying to win, and some people do recruit off the rankings, and, you know, that'll get you some winners, but it may not get the retention that you're talking about. I'm curious, you know, like in the NIL era, right? Like everybody's, well, how much are you giving me, right? And I would assume that's sort of a turnoff too, like right at the top if people are asking about money. I know D3s can get creative. You know, we had a lot of junior college guys that got offered D3 money, and it felt like it was voodoo math figuring out what the actual offer was. How much in the recruiting process when it comes to money, how difficult is it to compete with schools that have, you know, full scholarships or NAI programs which work off a salary cap, and they can, you know, if you really want me, you can recruit me and then bring my buddy in to be on the team and he gets 2,000 and it hits the number. You know, I mean, I think most people that are sort of in the know at all understand how that works. How difficult is it to work off your model, and what advantages are there off your model that maybe those of us on the outside don't see?
Man, that's a good question. It is extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult in this world where, you know, I told someone the other day, like, I can handle it when I lose a recruit to Iowa. You know, it's an Everest Leidecker, you know, or a Kylie Welker, and this is a kid that's already made world teams or won medals and, you know, at the high school level, and they want to go there. I can handle that. It's a hard one when I'm recruiting a kid that right now wouldn't crack our lineup, right? It might not even crack our lineup until sophomore or junior year. And she's on, you know, 50% or 75% at some D2 or NAI that, you know, we would beat 42-2 in a dual meet. And the reason I lose her is because of money, when, you know, she's telling me what her goals are to be an NCAA champ and make world teams. And we have more than they have, what she needs to get there, right? Something we always tell kids is scholarship doesn't make you a better wrestler. You need coaches, you need training partners. You have to have those things to get from where you are right now to where you want to go. Scholarship doesn't help get you there. Some kids that, you know, that hits home, and some kids it doesn't. Money talks, especially with mom and dad. We lose a lot of recruits because most girls on our team pay $20,000 to $25,000 a year to go here. Sometimes if you're Pell eligible, sometimes if you've got a 4.0, you know, depending on where you live, we can get you down under 20, but it's rare, right? And most of them take out student loans to do it. So yeah, we lose a lot of them, especially when you're at the level that we are. So we're recruiting the same level kids as the Iowas and McKendrees, the Grand Valleys, and they have so much money to throw around, right? Lehigh now, right? So it is extremely difficult. But something that Kendra Ryan, who's a 4-time All-American for us, she's our assistant coach now, said to me, and she's a kid that could have gone on full rides and came here, right, and got a lot better. Now she's on the senior national team, because she came here and got a lot better. But she said she feels like that's part of the reason why we are who we are culture-wise, is because there's a different level of investment. If I'm willing to pay $20,000 to $25,000 a year to go to this school versus another school for $5,000 or $10,000 a year, it shows how much I love wrestling, and it shows how much I value, my experience and the good coaches and training partners, that it's worth it for me. And I just think it's harder to quit. It's harder to relent. You're more invested in your teammates who are doing that same thing with you. So my wife will tell you how much it drives me nuts in the recruiting process when I lose a kid or I'm scratching and clawing to get a kid for, she can go to another school for a quarter of the price. But then once they're here, once I have a kid that bites the bullet and is willing to invest and do that, we get so much out of them, and it makes them so much fun to coach. So I think that's our advantage.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Kendra. Kendra actually wrestled in my event, the Michigan Border Brawl. Mm-hmm. I partnered up with Mario Flores on that, and we had some crazy matches up there. We had a match between two young ladies that both won Fargo 4 months later at cadets and juniors. And if we had done that on the boys' side, we'd have been the greatest matchmaker of all time. So It was like Nos against the young lady that's over at Life now. The girl from Ohio, and I'm drawing a blank. But
Savannah Isaac.
Yes, yeah. But we had Eliana Bomarito in that meet, Kendra Ryan in that meet. It was like a girls' all-star meet. Angelina Vargas was in it. Cece Williams was in it. So we'll have to get you to Border Brawl. Not that you need any help recruiting, but we're having a lot of good kids in that. It is interesting, though, because I grew up, my parents were both school teachers, so I didn't grow up rich or poor. We had everything we needed and a lot of what we wanted. But one of the things that was interesting was, like, if I wanted a new pair of running shoes, my dad, who was a college coach, is like, well, you have to be able to go run 3 miles this fast. Or if I wanted a new pair of wrestling shoes, like, well, you have to be able to do these techniques to this ability. And then when you have those wrestling shoes, you don't leave them laying around. You don't, oh, well, Dad, I'm sorry, I forgot them at the gym, and they're just going to buy you another pair. So the level of investment in that is interesting. You mentioned coaches and you mentioned workout partners. And I looked at your coaching staff, and you've got, I think it's 11 people here, if I'm counting correctly. And a bunch of people with a truckload of credentials. Do you want to take a few minutes and give a shout out to whoever you'd like to on the staff, and who does what specifically with your program?
Yeah, and bear with me because the girls just finished a workout. We're at Life. We're wrestling them tonight in a dual meet. So I'm getting them back to the hotel. So bear with me. So things are a little bit different here because I used to be the head coach of both the men's and women's teams. I wrestled here, been here for 20 years. It got difficult with the size of the rosters that we had to coach both teams, and both teams are really, really competitive. Our men's team's a top 5 team in the country too. So I handed the men's team to my assistant, but we still help each other out. So I'm the assistant coach for the men, and he's the assistant coach for the women. And then we have another guy that does both teams. So Jared Head and Grant Zaman, who are both phenomenal. Grant was a 2-time All-American Division III. Jared wrestled D1 at Old Dominion until they dropped their program, and then wrestled D2 at St. Cloud, which is obviously a tremendous program. He was well coached by Steve Costanzo there. And then the women on our team that are coaches are still training. So we're fortunate that, Kendra Ryan, Sydney Petzinger, these girls are on the senior national team. Amanda Martinez, right? Where they were multiple-time All-Americans. Sydney was a national champ. So they benefit from being here because they get to train, Lara Boyd's on the senior national team, but she gets to wrestle with Bellamere in practice, right? So that's what she gets out of it. We don't have a bunch of money to pay them. That's their I guess their payment is training, right? And coaching that they wouldn't get if they went and got paid somewhere else with not as good of training partners in the room. Right? But I want to say there's 5 of them now that are on the senior national team. And then the other ones that stick around are just recent graduates, girls that have, wrestle here and just still have a lot of investment in the program, and they're volunteering to do it.
That's awesome. One of the interesting things I would think in recruiting is the difference in styles, right? Like in boys or men's, it's folk style, and then post-collegiate freestyle, where the transition to freestyle happens between high school and college. So do you spend more, like if somebody's like a great leg rider or something like that, obviously that's not going to be an effective or nearly as an effective tool when you can just basically present yourself on bottom and freestyle. So is it more important to focus on with people that have really good leg attacks, people that are good in, theoretically like good in chest wrap, people are always good at facing out, understanding the edge, those sort of positions?
I wouldn't say technique matters as much. I mean, we still got kids that can ride legs. Monty Jones will throw legs in and rip a powerhouse freestyle. She doesn't care. But I think it's more about their mindset and philosophy. I'm looking for volume shooters. I want a kid that wants to go and take 15 shots a match, more so than a kid that wants to take one. Because then I can work with that. It shows a high desire to go and score points. And, you'll learn a lot more taking 15 shots and losing than you will taking one shot and winning, right? So I think we look more for that than specifically, is she good on top? Is she good on her feet? Is she good on bottom? So.
Yeah, I remember when there was a match or two where I just wrestled scared, and my dad would be like, "We don't need to watch the film. We don't need to watch 6 minutes of you standing there doing nothing." So, I know you've got the kids with you tonight, but Life won the NAIA Nationals. You guys won the D1 Nationals. How was the timing of this at all set up, or theoretically you guys would really be wrestling for the best sort of dual meet team in college women's wrestling? Did it just happen to fall this way? The fact that it's on Flow Wrestling Night in America, like how big of a deal is this for you guys?
Well, it started with Kyle last year. Klingman kept saying on his show, because we lost to Iowa in a dual meet, and so did Life, and then they won the NAIA. We took second. He kept asking like 3 shows in a row, like, who's the actual second best team in the country, and we'll never know. So Ashley texted me and said, let's do this dual meet next year. Kyle said we would do it on Flow Wrestling Night in America. And Ashley texted him and said, we're going to find out who the second best team in the country is. Well, then after we won the other day, she went up and told Kyle, I guess on Thursday we're going to find out who the actual #1 team in the country is. So it was already planned out before, but this makes it a lot more fun.
What are some of the matchups in terms of rankings that if people are watching tonight and aren't completely familiar with who's ranked at every weight in women's wrestling that they should be watching?
Good question. 131 is going to be 2 ranked wrestlers. Ely Aycock is a 2-time finalist for us, and Olivia Motley is ranked 3rd for 4 of them. Ely beat her twice at Midlands a couple weeks ago, but that's a really good wrestler. And then they have the McBrides at 38, 45, and 16. And we're ranked, in the top 3 at each of those weights as well. So all 3 of those matches will be really good ones. And then their heavyweight beat ours on a last-second push out in the semis at Midlands 2 weeks ago. We were winning up until that point, so we're hoping to get revenge on that one. So those are probably the big ones.
It sounds like the duel is going to be awesome. It sounds like probably each of you guys have a few weights where you're favored, but those swing matches go a long way. And I'll say this briefly for people that don't understand. Team scoring is very different in freestyle, both men's and women's. A pin is 5 for the winning and 0 for losing. A tech fall shutout's 4-0. A tech fall, if Joe texts me but I score, it's 4-1. A decision's 3-0 with a shutout, and a decision where we both score is 3-1. So you can do your team a lot of good just by scoring. So
yeah, and that's actually how Iowa beat us in that duel in 24. We won 6 of 10 matches, but they scored in every match.
Right.
And we didn't in some of the ones that we lost. So that's pretty crazy. And then this year we've kind of flipped that. We only won 4 matches, but we scored in all but one of them that we lost. And so kind of kept us in the fight. So yeah, it's crazy. It's super different. I think it's fun from a team standpoint because, we always say everyone matters, but literally everyone matters. Our girl that wrestled Kennedy Blades scored a step out. So it was 4-1. Our girl that wrestled Kylie Welker lost 8-2. So it was actually only a 2-point net advantage for Iowa with Kylie Welker on the mat. So it's cool because it makes everyone so important, even if they're outmatched.
I was going to mention the Blades match for sure, because I think even the cursory people know when Blades was an Olympic medalist. And if you can technically prevent 5-0, anything like 4-0 is better than 5-0 and 4-1 is better than 4-0. So those are all things that make a massive difference. I asked Pete Isaias one time if we could just change it to a pin is 6-0, a tech is shutouts 5, a tech with points is 4, a decision shutouts 3, and the decision with points is 2. You'd still be scoring the same thing, but I think it'd be easier for people to follow. But it goes back to the old good point system and, dots and all that other stuff back when I used to wrestle on horsehair mats in black and white. So that's what it goes back to. So after this meet, what does your guys' schedule look like coming down the stretch?
Actually, it's pretty fun because we won the D1 all division, whatever you want to call it, national duels. Life won the NAIA, and we duel them tonight. Wartburg won the D3 division that we opted out of. They're coming to us for a dual meet on January 29th. So, and that was all already planned before we knew we were going to win, before we knew Life was going to win, before we knew Wartburg was going to win. So it's pretty cool. If we can knock off Life tonight, and if we can beat Wartburg at home on January 29th, we'll be able to actually truly say that we are the best dual meet team in the country because we beat the champs in the other 2 divisions, and that's pretty cool.
That's 4-week stretch there. Would have to, right? It's literally less. It's all in the month of January between,
yes.
January 1, obviously January 1 and January 31.
Yeah.
That would have to go up there all time. And the crazy thing about this past weekend was, the Doc Buchanan happened, and it's the first time in forever, I think, that a public school is ranked number 1 on the boys' side. It's, Jack's Forest debuts to Funky Town, and, Northern Iowa beats South Dakota State at Northern Iowa. You've got on the men's side, Grandview doing Grandview things, going 36-4 in 40 matches. And my co-host on weighing in is one of the assistants over there, Grant Turner. And I just wanted to make sure this didn't get lost in the shuffle, because if this was a standalone tournament, like if this was the first weekend in November and they had just the women's tournament and that was it, this would be all the headlines. Yeah. And, I coached at a junior college for a long time. Like I remember, we were trying to figure out if we could get ham or turkey, to fit the budget. And obviously a lot of things have changed, but when you have kids as good as they are and they're all paying at least something to go to school there, and to beat Iowa, which probably has a lot of kids not paying anything to go to school there, and the coaching staff they have, and I know I can only imagine how much you guys have mutual respect for each other, and to beat them in Iowa, and I know it wasn't in Coralville or it wasn't in Iowa City, but you're still in their state. And then to not choke, to not go, okay, we beat Iowa, and then to hold it together and win the next one. Because like you said, the Iowa win's great as a standalone meet, but if you lose, then the other team can say, we beat the team that beat Iowa, so
right.
I just wanted to make sure a light got shown on you guys, because I think what you've accomplished is, I think taking second 3 times was amazing. And especially the year when you won 6 out of 10 matches, like you go home and you go, we won 6 out of 10. Like in any normal duel, it's over. Yeah. I have to imagine there's some sweet irony in that you won it this year and only won 4 matches. It's like,
yeah, I told Tanner Lefevre from Hawkeye Report, he did an interview with me after, and we were just talking about Deja Yerby, our 3rd string heavyweight, going out and getting that pin, to win us a dual meet despite only winning 4 matches. And, somebody like Klingman, who knows the ins and outs of that dual meet 2 years ago, or Tanner Lefevre knows the ins and outs of that dual meet 2 years ago. We lost the match 5-5 criteria at 109. We got pinned at 160 after scoring a point, so that we could get on the, it was just a lot of things. And so what I told Tanner is the Unidome owed us this one, right? The Unidome was in debt to the North Central Cardinals because of what it had done to us. And so that's why we got that one back. But you're right. I'm sure there's some good that comes from it. We have a lot of admiration for Gary Mayab and Clarissa. They're outstanding. And knowing Gary, he'll find a way to see this as a good thing, as, you know, call it a kick in the ass, call it perspective, call it whatever you want, that it can end up probably being a really good thing for the Hawkeyes, you know, in what it does for them. Obviously, they're never going to be happy about losing. And I'm sure that coaching staff will find a way to spin that for them. So we did that too. On the flip side, we've done that, right? So it's going to be we could win it in March at the tournament. We could finish fourth. I think the 4 trophy teams are pretty far out in front of everybody else, the top 4. But it's fun because we still don't know what's going to happen down there. You know, the national duels did not determine who's going to win that thing in March, the first NCAA tournament. Well,
there's an old saying that says in duels, your worst kids determine who wins, and in big tournaments, your best kids are the one.
Yeah.
And that's the nod of a coach that understands that. I mean, I try to explain this to people that are new to wrestling. In men's college, if you have 5 national champs, they're going to score a minimum of 100 points, and you could have 5 forfeits and never win a duel.
Mm-hmm. You know, well, King University, who's a perennial power in women's wrestling, and lost Jason Mormon, who I think is the best women's coach in the country, and they're trying to rebuild it now. They have 5 really good wrestlers on that team: Bomarito, Virginia Ford, some really good ones. And they have 5 weights where they're just not that good. And we saw it. They didn't place at the national duels, probably the first time, maybe ever, you know, that they didn't place. And that's who beat us the first time we took second in 23. But they're going to be in the mix at the tournament because they got 5 kids that can compete for national titles. So that's just proof of exactly what you're talking about right there.
Yeah, wrestling doesn't do itself a lot of favors, and it's hard to explain how scoring works. I said to somebody, in whether it's boys or girls, high school, college, freestyle, we wrestle this one format where one team wrestles another team probably 80% of the time. Then we wrestle maybe 10% of the time these tournaments. Almost all of those are one day. Then we go to our qualifier. Most of those are 2 days. And then like in men's folk style, it's 3 days. And you're like, I mean, like in football, a touchdown's always 6 points. The game is always 4 15-minute quarters. You know, like if you're trying to do
ourselves a lot of favors with gaining fans. Yeah.
Yeah. And you want to, like, I did a podcast the other day with the beach wrestling guy. Like, one of the reasons beach wrestling is popular is pretty freaking easy to understand.
Straightforward. Yeah, plain and simple. Yeah. Yeah.
As somebody who's on the forefront of this, and I think it was very humble, you said Jason Mormon's the best women's coach. I think there's probably some people that would disagree with you right now. Before I ask this question, Mayab already has 27 charts and graphs drawn up on what went right and wrong that weekend. We both know that. He's got pie charts. He's got Excel documents. He's got columns that fall in other columns. Yeah. So what do you think what is one way to help keep growing women's wrestling? Because I think girls wrestling is growing at a phenomenal rate, right? Like, the high school numbers are unbelievable. A friend of mine, her daughter was playing volleyball and she's short. And I said, you should have her wrestle. Like, you know, if you want her to get a scholarship, she should wrestle because she's built like a tank. And I go, you know, there's a lot of girls wrestling where if you don't have to have wrestled since you were 6 to be pretty good in high school. You know, it's a newer sport. Her daughter started it. First year she went 500. Now she's killing people. She's probably going to at least qualify for state. We all know that what wrestling does for us in terms of self-confidence, all these other things, is not gender specific. You know, it's all of that. But what's one thing you think that at any level that we could be doing to continue to grow the female side of the sport?
I think this could be a little bit controversial, but I think that we need more good, high-level, knowledgeable men's coaches to be willing to coach women. And Jason Mormon did it. He gave up his men's team to coach the women. I did it. I gave up a men's team that was preseason number 1 in the country going into that year to go, you know, be the women's head coach only. And here's why. I think that years from now, we need women leading our women's programs. but we got to remember how young the sport still is and how much it's still growing. And we just don't have women. Ashley Sword's one of the few. She's an outstanding coach here at Life, right? But we don't have women yet that have been an assistant coach, learned how to do it, right? How to have tough conversations, how to manage your alumni, how to fundraise, how to recruit, how to run a program, how to, jockey a lineup at the national duels, these kinds of things, yet to where these women are getting everything they need out of the experience. And I always phrase it like this. If you look at, the top men's Division I programs, and you're talking about Penn State, you're talking about Iowa, you're talking about Oklahoma State, those guys were Olympic champions. Cael Sanderson, David Taylor, Tom Brands, right? Our first Olympic champion in women's wrestling is still wrestling. Helen Marulis is still wrestling. Not saying she'll ever be a coach. She could probably be a great one, but we haven't had that trickle down yet where these people have gone up through the ranks. Like Cael Sanderson was an assistant coach under Bobby Douglas, right? Tom Brands was an assistant coach under Dan Gable. These guys have learned how to be coaches, and our women haven't yet because they're still competing. I have those women on my staff, Kendra Ryan, Alara Boyd, Amanda Martinez, that are senior national team members, college national champs. They're incredible, but I'm teaching them how to coach right now too, right? And we keep thrusting women into these positions because we want our teams to be led by women, and in a lot of cases, they're not ready yet. And like I said, that sounds bad. It doesn't mean I don't think women should coach. I want them to, but I don't want to rush these programs, and have them not coached by the right people. So we need more men to be less stubborn and be willing to coach women like Jason was, like I am, and build these kinds of programs. And in the process, the number of women that Jason Mormon developed into not just good wrestlers, but good coaches, and I'm doing the same, that's what's going to truly help us to have high quality female coaches leading our women's teams. But a lot of guys just don't want to do it, and that's frustrating. And women's wrestling needs it. Terry Steiner. What if Terry Steiner never agreed to coach women? Right? We just need guys to be willing to do that, and it's a lot of fun. They just got to be willing to do it.
Yeah, it's well said. Two of my good friends are Nate Engel and Lee Pritz, who are both, obviously coaching super high level matches, Olympics, Olympic trials, those sort of things. And I want to make sure, and if I'm paraphrasing wrong, please correct me. What you're saying is there will be plenty of great women coaches. They're just newer in the cycle and they got to get through it. But that the more men coaches that come over that are established can probably accelerate that. Yes. And there's credibility, right? Like if you're like, I was like Casey Cunningham and Cody Sanderson, but probably Casey more because nobody thinks Cody deservedly so would probably leave his brother. But like, Casey knows the system. Like the reason why David Taylor was so highly recruited as a coach was because even though he would never coached, he was in the system that's killing everybody. So it's, like if I just hung out there for a couple of years and just was a whatever, but had a real job in Naperville, but came in the program and saw how you ran things, and they go, he probably knows how to run. David probably knows how to run a program now. He probably knows how to fundraise where they don't have a $10 million a year benefactor. Like they know how to do fundraising. They know how to make the scholarship game work. They know how to do these things. And so it reminds me a little bit when I first started helping my dad, he just had me wrestle. That's all he had me do. And then he goes, okay, now show him what you're doing. Then show him how to do it. Then show him how to stop it. And then you like watching film, start watching film with guys. And he kind of just fed it to me in pieces. And by the time I was done, I understood it. Like I could coach a program and I understood fundraising probably better than him because I'm a money guy. But it's really well said. And I think like if you are around, not you, but if a person is around these women's coaches, like at the US Open, at the training center, they're really smart. Like they're really smart about wrestling. And our sport is weird in that if you weren't an Olympic champion, people think you can't be a great coach. Like, Bill Belichick, probably the greatest football coach of all time. Nick Saban, probably greatest college football coach of all time. These guys were not All-Americans and Hall of Famers. And then you see a guy like Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan try to coach, and they weren't great coaches, and they were unbelievable players. So I don't know if we'll ever get that stigma out of our head. But like Pat Popolizio was a Division I wrestler, but he was never an All-American, and he's an awesome coach.
Yeah, you mentioned Nate Engel. I think he's one of the, when it comes to wrestling IQ and coaching IQ, He's one of the best wrestling minds I know. And he's doing it now over there in the Springs. He's coaching it at the World and Olympic level. He's an NAIA guy, and he's a great wrestler, right? And he was a Greco guy, but he wasn't a Division I, 4-time this, Olympic this. Like, I just think that kills our sport a lot. Now, Kale Sanderson was a great wrestler, and he's a great coach. Sarah Hildebrandt was a great wrestler, and she's a great coach, right? You can do that, but you don't have to have Olympic medals and NCAA titles to be an incredible coach. And I think Nate's a great example of that. I could give Papa Lizzie, I give you so many great examples of that. I think it holds our sport back sometimes in recruiting and putting recruits in maybe the right places or coaches in the right places. And that's unfortunate.
Well, I think it's also a very weird dichotomy. Like, to be a great athlete, you have to be really selfish. And to be a great coach, you have to be really unselfish. And you have to convince a bunch of alphas to get along and to sometimes do what's better. Like, if you're better than me, like, hey, Joe, will you stay after practice and work with David? Where your mindset is, look, my job is to pin everybody, get 5-0, in the dual meet, and I did my job. So that's a contradictory thing. That's very difficult to sort of walk through the raindrops and try to stay dry on that, because it's super difficult. So, well, look, you're clearly busy. You did a car shuttle on the way over. By the way, the only kid I know I know Marufo because she wrestled in my event. Okay.
Yep.
She's from Kansas City. So shout out to KC, Missouri.
Yep.
And I know Kendra, but I'm super impressed. I don't know how many people got on that van, but how quiet they were. I'm sure you told them you were doing a podcast, but
Kendra told him, so she had him locked in. That was good on Kendra. That's a good assistant coach.
Please give Kendra my best. She actually created her own Michigan Border Brawl shirt, and it was military on the back because we raise money for veterans. And I think it was her grandfather was in the Army or Marines. I forget the exact branch, which unbelievably nice kid. It's difficult for me because when we sign the girls up for the event, it's a different world. Like, I don't ever talk to the girls by themselves. Like, it's always with the parent,
right.
For obvious reasons. And so you don't kind of get as close to them as you do some of the boys. But she was a joy. She couldn't have been a more yes sir, no sir kind of person, and thanked us for giving her the opportunity. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You owe us one. So,
yeah. She's outstanding, man. She really is. Yeah.
Well, I will do a selfish plug. If next year you need a play-by-play person, I'd be happy to hop on the train and come up to Naperville. Like, Chicago is one of my favorite towns, and
that would be so cool. Yeah.
It probably turn it into a beat the streets weekend. So if you get your schedule and you need somebody, maybe we can figure it out.
That would be outstanding, man. I would love that.
All right. Well, listen, you've been great. I appreciate the non-canned answers. Like, I think that we tried to make this like a coach's kind of podcast, like where we don't scream, we don't yell, we don't say bro, all those kind of things. Like, if a coach watched this, could they make their program a little better? Could they make their team a little better? Could they become a little bit better coach? And you've certainly done that. And even if you hadn't, you deserve the shine for what your program has done the last 4 years, but especially this month. I think we'll all be watching the next 4 weeks. Either you guys are going to make history or somebody else is going to make history off your name because of what you guys did last weekend. So best of luck tonight. Please say hi to Ashley. And if Omi's there, Omi for me. And we appreciate everybody watching, listening, subscribing, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks so much.